In this video, I'm going to show a quick demo of the process flow modules that we implemented for coreBOS. The functionality is when you have a certain process, a certain field that kind of uh, dictates the steps that a record should flow through. For example, the typical example is on the opportunities module, where you want the whole sales funnel to follow the steps that the company defines. We implemented a way of doing that and kind of forcing the users to actually push through that series of steps. As you can see here, I already set it up for the assets module, and I'm on step 1. I'm controlling the status field. I'm on step 1, and I can run from step 1. I can only go to out of service and step 2, as you can see here on the diagram on the right. Let's see how that works. This is a set of 4 modules: the process flow, which defines the actual module you want to control and the field; the process steps, where you can go from one to the other; and the process alerting system, where you can actually kind of do SLAs and kind of stuff like that. Then we have a process log module, which basically is just for logging. The logs are done with the workflow system, so you can define all the steps as you need. And then we have here a process flow perspective, which I'm going to click on. And this one is just a way of installing on one shot using the perspective philosophy or functionality in coreBOS. It installs all 4 modules for you. As you can see here in the composer JSON file, it gives you the order of install here. You have to install the log, then the alerts, the steps, and the flow at the end. Anyway, here we also have some documentation. I'll try to explain what I'm talking about, basically what each module is for and how they relate. Process flow has a bunch of alerts, a bunch of steps, and a bunch of logs. Logs can also be on the steps and on some other modules also. Actually, this is just a normal module, so you can relate it to anything else you want, actually. And then the alerts and the steps are related to the workflow system. As anybody following coreBOS knows, uh, the workflow system is kind of our go-to place for anything that is functionality. We kind of make it richer and richer and more powerful by every release, and it's we use it for everything. That if you have to send an email, any kind of process that you have to do it, so it's just kind of logical to use it here too. So actually, process step, when you go from step 1 to step 2, we have a set of workflows that you can launch. Okay, and the workflows can do everything that workflows can do. Here we kind of define the functionality, kind of explain the different the difference between a process a step is when you go from when you have one of these hard arrows, and alert is basically when you go from one to another, where you want to control when we're on one state, how long it takes us to get to the other ones, and the like. The alerting is based on the cron. So when you install, it installs a cron service, which you have to activate in the service in the scheduled program things. And we have some context variables that you can use in the workflows to get information about what's going on. Okay, let's see this in person, and the way I have it here, just kind of a quick demo. Here we have the 4 modules. So I'm going to, okay, I don't have the process log, process steps, alerts, and okay, 1 second, I'll get it. Oops. Okay, don't know why, but I don't have that there. Okay, let's just go, and that is CB process flow. Okay, the flow, as you can see here, defines a name, so we can kind of reference it. And the important fields are the module. On what module are we going to enforce this flow? What field are we supposed to control, if it's active or not? And if we have any conditions. These conditions are applied to the record themselves. So if you just want to control a subset of the records on the module, you can define this condition. In other words, if I have the opportunities module, and I want to control only opportunities that have an amount bigger than 100, then I would add a validation on the process flow so that any opportunity with a flow bigger than 100 would be applied and the others wouldn't. Okay, in this case, in the assets, I'm going this condition. These conditions are going to open in another window, another tab. This condition is using the validation, the condition expression business mapping. Obviously, the business maps are like workflows. They're everywhere. They're the powerful system that we use to implement logic in the system. So it just makes sense to actually do the expression with the condition expression. If this is true, the record will the process flow will be applied to the record, and if it's not, then that record will not apply. In this case, I'm controlling that tag number equals control. That means that any asset that I have where the tag number, as you can see here, is control will be affected by this process flow. If I have another record, let's move over to the next one, where tag number is not controlled, then this one is not affected by the process flow. Okay, so process flow, as you can see, really simple. It just defines the module, the field, and any conditions you want on that. Then a process flow has a bunch of steps and a bunch of alerts, just like the graph we were seeing before. In this case, I'm saying that the process can go from step 1 to step 2, from step 1 to out of service. So if we look here on the record that we were on, I'm in status step 1. Okay, those values are here, step 1, step 2, step 3, in service, out of service. So I'm on step 1, I can go to out of service, and step 2, which is the graph that I have here. That's defined here. Okay, that's saying that step 1 can go here and step 1 can go here. Step 2 can go to out of service, step 3 and in service, and step 3 can only go to in service. Okay, so that means that I'm actually forced to do that. So if I'm on step 1 and I want to go to step 3 directly, and I click here and go to step 3, I get an invalid flow transition for that status. Okay, so we cannot go, the foot system will not let us go to that. If I, okay, yeah, so that's basically that easy. Okay, these steps, let's have a look at one of these steps. This step from step 1 to step 2, has a positive set of workflows and a negative set of workflows. Okay, I can select any workflow I want here, any of the workflows that I define in the system. And why positive and negative? Because if I try to go from step 1 to step 2 and the validations do not pass, then all of the workflows in the negative set will be launched. So if I want to send an email, for example, when somebody tries to go from step 1 to step 3, I want to get notified, then I can just add that email or that notification into the negative set. If, on the other hand, when things go well and I do actually go from step 1 to step 2, I want to send some other emails or do some other actions, then I have to do those in the workflows in the positive validation task. So you just define all of the workflows you want with whatever logic you need, and you just select them here in the positive or the negative set. In this case, there's no validation, but the next step, if I want to go from step 1 to out of service, it does have a validation here. This validation, I'm going to open in another tab, is again just a business map. Okay, because we already have business maps, we already have validations, so we just use the map there. This validation is saying that assets, the shipping method cannot be in shipped. Okay, so I cannot move to out of service when the asset has been shipped. Okay, so that will actually work. So if I'm on step 1 and I try to go to out of service with shipping here, shipping or shipped? Shipped. Let's copy that so we make sure we get it right. Shipped. Okay, so if I try to go to out of service now by clicking here, yes, I want to continue. It says invalid flow transition for status. Okay, so obviously if I try to go here out of service, I will get the same value. Okay, so basically you can do, obviously, I didn't mention, but this graph is actually operative. If I click on these links, it will actually take me there. So if I click on this step 2, in this case it's asking me if I want to continue, we can activate or deactivate that. And I actually changed. I am now in step 2, and from step 2 the graph has changed and showed me that I can go to all of these. So you can actually move also the status just clicking on the events here. Very, really nice, powerful. Okay, and so as you can see, the steps are here. They just define that. Basically, a step is from here to here, if it's active or not. If we have any validations, and if we have any context. The context are fields values that you want to move around when you launch the workflows. This context is passed into the workflows, so you can actually set variables and do things with the context. Very, very powerful also. The alerts are very similar. Basically, it's a schedule thing. Basically saying, okay, when you are in this flow on the asset module, which comes from this flow, and it is in status in service, check every 35 minutes and launch these workflows. Okay, obviously these workflows can update the status, can push the the flow around, notify people, whatever you have to, because workflows can do almost anything that you need to do. So basically, it's just kind of like checking a little cron that's working there, controlling all the time the status of all of the fields. This is in CRM settings in the scheduler. We have a new scheduler here, which is process alert queue, which is installed when you install the modules, and it runs every few minutes, actually every minute, trying to control this interval here that you have. Okay, this interval is minutes, hours, daily, and weekly. I mean, you have most of it, everything you need to control how you want this to be. And then the log is basically just the log. I mean, it's just a log about. It's just a record, a module that records events. So in this case, for example, I'm recording here that this flow made it to this step, the previous step, the next step, and some log numbers. You can, obviously it's just a normal module, so you can add custom fields, and you can, this record is actually created in the workflow system. If we come over here to this workflow, probably this one is actually the one that's creating update fields and create entity. Okay, so when that alerting system is launched, it actually creates this record, which is a process log, and you can define all of the fields that you need, even the custom fields or whatever you need to add. You can just do it because it's just normal workflows. Also very interesting, this new function we have here, which is get from context, where you can actually get this variable, in this case process relates step or alert, is the ID of the step or the alert that actually triggers this workflow. So you can actually get that and relate it in the new record you're creating, which is exactly what it's doing here. The related step, it's setting that. So so basically that's about it. The idea is that we now have a rather simple and graphical way of forcing a path through the process and for your users. This is just another last comment. This functionality can be exported rather easily on the workflow system. On the web service, we have all of the execution of the workflows, so you can actually launch them. You can retrieve them from the related list of each one. You can push them and launch them through the web service, and you can actually show this graph not only here but also, for example, we could do, I mean, I think, for just to get an idea, I think I have it installed here on my development Mattermost. We can actually see these here. See, I actually have this graph here, in the Mattermost, where I could actually click here and implement the whole workflow even from outside. So it's just not just inside the system, which is powerful, but you could actually export this and do it from outside rather easily also. Well, I let me know what you think. Bye.